Welcome everyone as we record the special shir known as For the Shabbos Table on Parshas Chukas, and we are sponsored by the Rubin family that makes this shir possible with a very kind grant, and we thank them. They ask us that we should be mispal, that they should have a healthy ben zacher, and they should, of course, have atzlacha and ruchnius and gashmius. We know that one of the purposes of life is to overcome our Yetzer Hara. That's the perennial battle, as the Gemara tells us in the beginning of Masechtas Brachos. La'olam yargiz adam Yetzer Tov al Yetzer Hara. A person should incite his Yetzer Tov against his evil inclination. And it's a battle royal. As Yerachim HaKadosh tells us, Ki tzeitzei la'milchama al ivecha, when you do battle against your enemy, oyev ha'amiti shel ha'adam, the true enemy of a person is the Yetzer Hara. As the Gemara tells us, Yitzrei shel adam mevakesh alav b'chol yom l'hamisai. A person's Yetzer tries to do him away every day. If Hashem didn't help, but we need to start. It says in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He helps us, because but we have to start the battle. Now we know that we just learned it in the Daf Yomi. Actually, it's today's Daf. The Gemara tells us that Eev says, Hashem, you made Risham, you made Tzadikim, what could a person do? And the Chaverim of Eev said, well, the Rebbeinu Shalom told us, Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlin La. Hashem said, I created the Yetzer Hara, I created the Torah as its antidote. I created the Torah that enables us to overcome the Yetzer Hara, right? The Yetzer Hara, which is an Eish, like Rav Amram Chasidu, when he bested the Yetzer Hara, tried to get him to sin with beautiful captives, he said, come out of me, and it came out like a fire. And we fight fire with fire, right? Because the Torah is fire, miyamina yesh das lamai. And we fight fire with water, because the Torah is like mayim. However, in this week's Parsha, we learn another tremendous weapon against the Yetzer Hara. Pasuk says, Al kein yoimru hamoishlim bo cheshbain tibane v'sikainen irsichain. So the Gemara says in Bava Basra, Ayin Ches Amud Beis, translating this pasuk homiletically, what does it mean? Al kein yoimru hamoishlim Amar Ashmu ban Achmeini Amar Rab Yonasan Hamoishlim, rulers, Elu Hamoishlim b'Yitzra. These are people that rule over their Yetzer. Now, there are a lot of people who their Yetzer rules over them. Like it says, the Risham b'Rishus Libam. The Risham are controlled by their hearts, while Tzadikim Libam b'Rishusam. Their hearts are controlled by them, but Risham are controlled by the hearts. So, what do Hamoishlim means? Elu Hamoishlim b'Yitzram. These are the people that have control over their Yetzer Hara. How? They say, Bo cheshbain, let us make a calculation. Bo v'nachshav cheshbainoi shel olam. Let us make the calculation of the world. Let us think about hefsid mitzvah keneged schara, the momentary loss that we do if we push ourselves to do a mitzvah. I can't go and schlep out now for mincha. Al dam bain koisel. Again, I'm going to go out. It's so humid outside. It's pouring outside. I'm not going to get parking. Keneged schara. You know what a mincha is? You know what one mincha is? Uschar aveira, and the fleeting pleasure that we get from saying that lashon hara keneged hefseida, compared to its loss. It says in Masechtas Yerushalmi Peya that the three worst sins are Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayis, and Shvichas Damim, and Lashon Hara Keneged Kulam. So that pleasure that you get, that you are in the know, and people say he's got the scoop, Keneged the loss, the terrible, terrible loss. Im ata oisekain, if you make a cheshbon, tibana va'olam hazeh, you'll be built up in this world, v'sikainen la'olam haba, and you'll be established forever. So it's interesting, in the Sefer Oid Yosef Chai, he says, what does it mean, Boi v'nasu cheshbonai shel olam? So the Oid Yosef Chai says, look at cheshbon, look at math. When you take a 1 and you put next to it, 1 next to each other, 11 ones, you get a number in the billions. But if you put a 1 on one page, and then another 1 on another page, and another 1 on another page, all you have is 1. The same thing he says is true if you take 1 and you put a 1 on top of it, and a 1 on top of it. All you have is 1. He says that's the power of Achdus. When Yidden work together, and they're one next to each other, oh, is that a great strength. That's such a great strength. But if they say separate, and especially if they try to get one on top of another, then you only have 1. It's like the famous story. It's a great story. The Rebbe was teaching that a yud is called a yud because it's just a drop of ink. That's why yud vav dal is the same letters as gyoy, because a yud is just a drop of ink. So one of the boys in the cheder, was a Vishnitzer cheder, one of the boys in the cheder asks, Rebbe, I don't understand. If there's 2 Yudin next to each other, that's Hashem's name, Yud Yud, right? And all the old Siddurim, it always had Yud Yud. The Dvar Aaron says that Yud Yud stands for the Shem Hashem B'kriyasa Yub'ksivasa. So it's written Yud Kei Vav Kei, and it's read Aleph Daled Nun Yud. So that's from Yud to Yud. So he says if you put 2 drops of ink next to each other, it's Hashem. But if you put 2 drops of ink, one on top of each other, it's a Shva. It's nothing. So the Rebbe was so astounded by the question that he said, he took the boy to ask the Oyev Yisrael, Vision to Rebbe. And the Vision to Rebbe smiled and he said, let me tell you. You know what else a Yid is? A Yid, we're called Yidden. And we're called Yidden because all our names start with a Yud. Right? Yehudim, Yisrael, Yeshurun. When 2 Yidden try to get one on top of each other, each one tries to better each other. That's Shva, that's When Yidden live alongside each other, when Yidden live alongside each other, then you have Shechina. If it's Yud Yud, if it's the 2 drops are next to each other, and Yidden are together, then you have Ashur Shechina. That's the power of Yidden being together. The Chavetz Chaim, Zecher Tzadik Kodesh Bracha Schus Yogan Aleinu, he said, Bo v'nasa cheshbonai shel olam. What does it mean, shel olam? So he says, olam means forever. Like it says, Hashem yimloich la'olam vo'ed. So, bo v'nasa cheshbonai shel olam. If a person would realize and stop to think that for a mitzvah a person gets forever, would a person ever think to say, if he realizes that for going to a daf yomi, they'll say when he comes to the next world, Ashrei mi sheba likan v'talmudai biyadai. If a wife will stop to think, she's going to encourage her husband to go and learn. She's not going to say, well, you know something? You got to learn, you never have time for me. but she's going to stop to think that she's going to be a partner in what it says, Ashrei mi shabal likan v'talmud biyada. Now that's a maimer in Baba Basra. There's another maimer in the beginning of Masechtas Avodah Zarah. In the beginning of Masechtas Avodah Zarah, it says that Hashem is going to take a Sefer Torah b'cheikai. Kaviyachli is going to put it on his lap, and he'll say, Kol mi she'asik ba yavai v'yitel schara. Whoever spent their time, come and take reward. It doesn't say that Hashem is going to take a pushka on his lap. It doesn't say he's going to take tefillin on his lap. It doesn't say he's going to take Shabbos on his lap. He's going to take Torah on his lap and say, Kol misha asik. But it says the Chavetz Chaim. That's the meaning of saying, Bo v'nachshav cheshbonai shel olam. It's olam, it's nitzchias. Hashem yimlach la'olam v'ed. And if a person stops to think that way, I once heard that in Bnei Brak, the Chazon Ish, Zechatzav Kodesh Baruch Hu, Schus Yagan Aleinu, the Gadol Ador, the unquestionable Gadol Ador, he wasn't a public speaker. But once on Yom Kippur, they prevailed upon him to speak in the yeshiva in Bnei Brak. And his entire speech was to say over and over and over again, Olam hazeh daima leproizdor lifnei olam haba. This world is a hallway. Think about this world as being a hallway. It's only to get to the trackland. It's only to get to the ballroom. I like to tell people, imagine somebody goes to a chasana. In my day, Marina Del Rey was a fancy wedding hall. Imagine if somebody went to the chasana and he spent the entire night in the coat room. And somebody said, well, where were you? He said, what are you talking about? You had to see these coats, a mix of every kind. I was in awe of the different colors. Are you crazy? You spent the whole night in the coat room? You know what you missed? You know the smorgasbord? You know the band? You know the singers? You know the joy? There are people that will come to the next world and they'll find out that they spent the entire night in the coat room. It's a really scary thing. So the Chavetz Chaim says, this is basics. The Chavetz Chaim says, Bo v'nachshav cheshbonai shel olam. L'maisa is, I'm going to tell you something, Rabbi Say, that you're going to find so remarkable and staggering. Rabbi Yerucham Memir says that the Chavetz Chaim had a room, an attic. And in that attic, he made a cheshbon hanefesh, spending sometimes between 2.5 hours and 4 hours on a cheshbon hanefesh. And you were able to go near the attic and hear the Chavetz Chaim. And Rabbi Yerucham once sat to listen to the Chavetz Chaim making a cheshbon. And he did a play-by-play of himself not feeling well, then taken to bed, and again brought to the hospital, and having the Chevra Kadisha come, and passing away, and being buried, and being put in the ground, and then taken to the next world, and then they take him out for a din v'cheshbon, and he goes through how they were judging him, and it's fascinating. So what were the aveiros that the Chavetz Chaim was calculating? Mitzvahs that he did, not besimcha. In the Teichacha it says, Tachas asher lo yavadata Hashem Elokecha besimcha. So he was castigating himself for doing mitzvahs not besimcha. Another thing that he went through is he was doing mitzvahs. It wasn't about aveiros. It wasn't about not doing mitzvahs. Okay, sometimes he calculated if he completed the mitzvah completely. But also he made a cheshbon if he did the mitzvah ba'ahava, with love. If you think about it, when we say the Kedusha in Musaf, and we're talking about Shema, So we say, and we end with a crescendo. Pamayim b'yava shema imrim. What are we saying? Twice a day we say Shema ba'ava. We're not saying that we say Shema with kavana. Of course, that's important. But Pamayim b'yava Shema oimrim. Twice a day we say Shema with Ava. When do we say Shema with Ava? With love. They say that Rabbi Yerucham listened to the Cheshbon HaNefesh of the Chavetz Chaim and he fainted. It's brought down that someone once heard the Chavetz Chaim making a Cheshbon HaNefesh on what he did with a certain 2 minutes during the day. But one thing we see, I mean, of course, we're not on the Madrega to make such lofty and such elaborate Cheshbon HaNefesh, but any time we start thinking, a person starts thinking, and he says to himself, am I giving tzedakah? I'm not taking the money with me. Am I spending time with Kibbud Av'aim? Do I learn enough Torah? What is it like to be married to me? Am I a proper parent? Am I a good friend? Do I think enough about Hashem during the day? Am I preparing for Olam Haba? Anytime a person makes a Cheshbon HaNefesh, that's the way you're moishel on your Yetzer. Al kein yoimru ha-moishlim bo Cheshbon. Now, it says that we should measure schar aveira keneged hefseda, the profit that we get from a sin corresponding to its loss. The Tufki Yabiu, which is the original Svarim that Reb Zilberstein broke into the world. That was his original, before the Aleinu Shabbat, before the Baruch Nafshi, before the Harevna, before the Chashukei Chemed. I mean, it's amazing. He should be gesund and stark to greet the Mashiach. So he gives two examples of what could be the consequences of an Aveira. The first example is a contractor, an Erlicha contractor came to him and said he had a dismal deal where he lost $500,000. And he would like the Rav to help him, because here's a person that knows that if something happens, there's no mikra, there's no coincidence. So if he could help him figure out why this happened to him, they should take such a hit, he should lose $500,000. So first the Reb Zilberstein asked him if he does any ribbis, anything questionable that might be ribbis. So the businessman said, Chas v'shalom, he's so careful. No. Then he asked him if he's kavei itim latar. He says, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I learn before davening. So then he asked him if he gives tzedakah. So he says, yes, I give solid meiser, and he made a cheshbon for him. Then Rav Silberstein asked him the zinger. In your business dealings, did you recently hurt another yid? And the man thought, and he said, yes, I did. Bingo! What happened? He was working on a very, very high-level apartment complex. They were boutique apartments. And one of the apartments, they were all millionaires, multimillionaires. One of the apartments were bought by a Frum Yid. Now, most of the apartments in Tel Aviv were by non-Dati, non-Haredi. And when they heard that he gave an apartment, a choice apartment, to a Haredi, they all started to pull out. And without a choice, he could have lost the whole enterprise. He had to take away the apartment from the Frum Yid. And he says the Frum Yid didn't deserve it, and he imagined it caused him great distress. So Rav Zilberstein says, there you have it. There you have it. That's schar aveira keneged hefseda. Another example, he says, is that a big doctor came to him with an unusual story. He comes from shul, and he's walking, and the police stop and want to arrest him. It's a famous doctor. So what are you talking about? What do you mean? Your car was involved in an accident, somebody died. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. I was in the synagogue, I didn't drive my car. What happened? Somebody stole his car, sped, and got into an accident. There was a lot of aggravation for the doctor till it was all straightened out. They wanted to put him in handcuffs. So he asked Rav Zilberstein, why did this happen to me? So Rav Zilberstein asked him straight out, tell me something. When you drive, do you ever cause aggravation to people with your driving? And he thought, and he says, I did that yesterday. He says, look, I'm a doctor, and, I have the credentials where I need to get to the hospital quickly, and then I drive around people, and, But yesterday I did it when I wasn't going to the hospital, just out of habit. Bingo. Bingo. Because of Chilul Hashem, when you don't have a right to do so, bingo, that's schar aveira keneged hefsed. Hefsed mitzvah keneged schar. The loss of a mitzvah corresponding to its reward. I heard something yesterday from the Kruller Rebbe. The Kruller Rebbe said, do you hear what we say before we say Tachnun? If you daven Sfard, I daven Ashkenaz, but when I daven with the Rebbe, I daven the Nusach Sfard Tachnun. So you say, Gedulas rachamecha v'chasadecha, the greatness of your mercy and your kindness. Tizkar hayom, you should remember today, uvechol yom, and every day, lezera yedidecha. Please Hashem, remember your mercy and your kindness today and every day for the descendants of your beloved ones, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's a big thing. We ask Hashem, look, we're zera yedidecha. We're the descendants of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So remember, gedulas rachamecha v'chasadecha. But says the Kruller Rebbe, you want to be zeicher that Hashem should remember you? There's something that you could do. Hashem said that every day we should remember 6 things. Some people say it at the end of davening. But whether you say it or not, there's sheish zechiros. There's 6 things that we're supposed to remember. What are the 6 things? We're supposed to remember Zeicher Yetzias Mitzrayim. We're supposed to remember Zechor al Tishkach Mamad Har Sinai, when Hashem gave us the Torah, and Torah is Misinai, and Hashem revealed himself to us. We're supposed to remember Amalek, right? Asher Korcha Baderach, he met you on the road when you were oya for your geya, when you were tired and weary, and took advantage of you. Vayezanev b'chol kol hanecha shalom acharecha. So you should remember to wipe out Amalek. The 4th thing is Zachar Eisa Asher Hiksafta B'Midbar. Remember how you got Hashem angry in the Midbar and complained. You complained about the gift of the man. You complained that there wasn't meat. You complained that you remembered the daga, right? How you got Hashem angry in the Midbar. Zachar, what happened to Miriam because she spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu. And Zachar es Yom HaShabbos Likatshay. If a person does the Sheish Zechiros, then when a person does the Sheish Zechiros, Mida Keneged Mida, he could say, Hashem Gdus Rachamecha V'Chasadecha, Tizkar Hayom V'Chol Yom L'Zera Yedidecha. So remember, a person doesn't bother to remember these things. Oh, you have said mitzvah Keneged Zechara. If we remember good things, then Hashem will remember us. Right? He'll remember Gdus Rachamecha V'Chasadecha, Tizkar Hayom V'Chol Yom. The consequences of a little mitzvah. My Rebbetzin showed me that in the Zera Shimshon on Tehillim, there's a beautiful story brought down. Reb Baruch Rosenblum in Eretz Yisrael gives a lot of shiurim. One of his shiurim, maybe it was in Pashkas Ekev, he was talking about V'haya Ekev Tishmon, to be very careful of mitzvahs she'adam dosh ba'akeva. Be careful with mitzvahs that people take lightly, that they trample upon. And after speaking about this, someone came to tell him, I have to tell you a story. I have to tell you a story. It starts a year ago. A year ago, I accepted a Kabbalah upon myself on Rosh Hashanah that I would try to wash my hands before every tefillah. People are careful to go out and wash their hands before davening. He says, I'll be careful to do that. So one day, my wife told me she wanted to go to the separate beach near the Sheraton. So I took her there. She said, what are you going to do? He says, I'll go jog. So she's exercising. I'll exercise. As I'm jogging, I hear them call, Mincha, Mincha. Oh, great. I can chapa Mincha. The chapa Mincha, in the middle of everything, where are you going to wash your hands? But a block away was the Yarkon River. So he said, yeah, but when I accepted to wash my hands, I wasn't talking about where there isn't a sink. He said, but what are you talking about? You said you're going to wash your hands. I got a hold of a cup, and I went down to the Yarkon River. I dipped it in, and as I'm dipping into the cup, I see a hand. I said, a hand? What am I seeing things? I felt there's a little girl in the water. And I quickly pull her out. He says, I'm a member of Hatzalah. I knew what to do. I immediately got her to choke up the water, and after a moment, she started breathing. And it was chilling. Another few minutes there, she would be dead. I said to myself, look at this. This woman is going to grow up to get married and to have children and to be a wife and a bubby. Why? Because I was careful on this mitzvah to push myself to go wash my hands. I made a Kabbalah. That's the meaning of hefsid mitzvah keneged schara. Imagine if you wouldn't do the mitzvah. The value, and this, by the way, is pshat mitzvah gereris mitzvah. One mitzvah leads to another mitzvah. And you know, on Rosh Hashanah, when we say, Abinu Malkeinu Kasveinu B'Sefer Zechuyos, write me in the book of opportunities. What does that mean? B'Sefer Zechuyos, in the book of merits. If I did merits, I don't have to ask Hashem to write me. If I didn't do merits, I'm asking Hashem to make up something? No, it means write me in the book of opportunities. This person got an opportunity to save a life. Why? Because he did another mitzvah. Because he did his Kabbalah. You know, we're just in Tammuz. Today is Hey Tammuz. It's less than 2 months to Elul. We already start thinking of Kabbalahs. I'll tell you what I heard from Rav Shlomo Lawrence. Rav Shlomo Lawrence was a great biographer. He said he had a heart attack, and while he was recuperating in the hospital, Rav Shach came to visit him. And Rav Lawrence said to Rav Shach that he wants to take a Kabbalah unto himself because Hashem saved his life. So Rav Shach says, whatever Kabbalah, make it small. If it's grandiose, if it's big, it's not going to have a longevity. Make it a small Kabbalah. That's meaningful to Hashem. As always, I want to thank the Rubin family for making this possible, and I want to thank you all for joining us. Remember, we have the Zoom Daf Yomi. If you're listening tonight, it'll be 9:15 this evening, a special time, because I'm Masada Kirushim Bayachasana tonight. And you go to zoomdaf.com and put in meeting code 914408. That's at 9:15. Amazing. I got it to Gemara about Eiv. Motzi Shabbos at 10:45, 2 blat. Next week, every night at 8:55. If you want to sponsor a share, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi at AOL.com. Thank you for joining us. and have a wonderful evening.